Many investors are looking for copper exposure right now. So great timing. One of the entrepreneurs who has been on our show consistently for the last 4.5 years while he worked on the permitting process for his project in the United States. They've got big news today. So I'd like to welcome back to the show, Rick Trotman, the CEO of Barksdale Resources. Enjoy. All right, welcome back to the Jay Martin Show. And I'm joined once again by Rick Trotman. It's been a while, Rick, President and CEO of Barksdale Resources, and it's really good to have you back on.
It has been a while, Jay. I'm glad to be back.
Well, you're back with good news, which is the best part. It's always a joy when I introduce a company and an entrepreneur to my audience, when I'm a shareholder and you tell me your ambitious plans, and then I get to bring you back and you tick the boxes and done exactly what you said you were going to do. So we're celebrating today what is a bit of a 4.5-year journey for Barksdale. You guys are just ticked a massive box, but it's been a while since I had you on. We're going to get into that, but can you just back up for anybody new to the story and tell us the 50,000 foot view? What is Barksdale? What's the mission?
Sure. Yeah, Barksdale is a base metal exploration company that has key assets in both Mexico and southern Arizona. Our flagship assets are within a district that is quite simply world-class. There's a very large mine that's going to be built immediately next door by a very large mining company, multi-billion-dollar project. We have the other piece of it. And that's the Sunnyside project. We have some other projects in that same district that all tie together and bring the story home. And this year, we're going to be doing a lot of drilling within that district and hopefully showing the world how important and how big our asset is.
Yeah, this year you're going to be doing some drilling on that asset. So that's the news. Let's talk about that. So You guys put out some news this morning. What was it, Rick?
We finally got our permit. So we've been, as you said, in a permitting process with the U.S. Forest Service for about 4.5 years. This morning, we announced that we received our draft permit. So our draft finding of no significant impact and our draft decision notice. So this sets into play kind of a statutory process of dotting the I's and crossing the T's as we move towards final completion of the permit, which will allow us to post our bond and get drilling, Jay.
And just for clarity, when you say draft, Rick, what this means, it's like the final chapter in a very long book, because you guys submitted, I believe, the application for this permit in 2018. Is that correct?
Indeed.
Tons of hoops that you have to jump through. And the final draft period means there's 45 days left, at which point individuals have the opportunity to submit any objections, but only if they've previously submitted a comment during the last 4.5 years. And
exactly. Okay. Exactly. Yep.
And during the last 4.5 years, some comments were submitted, as is normal, 100% of which have been addressed by the Forest Service Agency. So at this point, you don't have any outstanding issues, comments. Like, talk to me about that, how you're feeling about the next 45 days, I guess, where I'm going.
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good. So what happens is that we submit a bunch of scientific data along with our plans to the Forest Service. They review all of it. Review the scientific information and basically put together an environmental assessment. And that environmental assessment goes out to the public. They make comments on it, as you mentioned. And then the Forest Service goes back, incorporates all those comments to make sure that they're dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's. And now they're effectively done with that environmental assessment. And so now we're going into that objection period. If people don't think their comment was adequately addressed for whatever reason, they can object. And then the Forest Service will basically send them a letter to notify them how and where they addressed their comments within the environmental assessment itself. So the Forest Service has a ton of information and they monitor every single comment and address them within that EA. So we feel very good that everything's been addressed. And so, we go into these statutory periods with defined timelines and we just got to chew through them. And in the meantime, while all of that's going on the Forest Service's side of the fence, we are going to be working on getting our environmental bonds posted, staffing up our team, getting everything ready, get drill contracts in place. That way, once we are allowed, we can hit the ground running and start drilling as soon as the final plan of operations is signed, which gives us approval to go out there and act.
So that's what you'll be doing over the next 45 days, staffing up, posting any environmental bonds, getting the drill contracts in place. So when you get the expected green light, you can put cash in the ground to work immediately, correct?
Yeah, so the 45-day objection period occurs, and then there's a 45-day objection response period. That's when the Forest Service will go through and send all of those letters out to the folks that may or may not put in objections, right? And so what happens, Jay, is that most of these people that would object, they don't do it until the last day. It'd be really nice if they did it on day one, so that way, you can kind of start sending those letters out, but they tend to do it on the last day. So we've got a 90-day window in there where all of this stuff gets done. There's, it's down to, legal contracts and things like that. So we're pretty good about it.
Now, a lot of companies I know would use an event like this to create an opportunity for a financing. You're not doing that. Treasury is pretty healthy right now, about $4 million in the bank, and
Exactly.
Potential for another 3 to come in via some warrants. Is that correct?
Yeah, all of this is coming together at a pretty interesting time. So as you would remember, we had some warrants that were expiring a couple of months ago, kind of end of September. And because the permit was taking longer than expected, we tried to give our shareholders another kick at the can of getting those warrants, heavily in the money. And so we extended them to the end of January to give more time for that permit to come through. And it looks like it's doing exactly that. So in a little over a week, at the end of the month, those warrants expire. We've already brought in, I want to say, close to $1.5 million worth of exercises on those. And we have a couple million additional dollars worth of warrants that are deeply in the money that expire at the end of the month. So we have $4 million now, and we could have, in excess of $7 million by the end of the month if the majority of those warrants come through. So there's no financing planned. We are not going to use this event as a catalyst to raise money. And so we're quite excited about the response in the market, and hopefully, our shareholders, see a benefit here.
Well, sentiment's been strong, that's for sure. So obviously we're going to be drilling, but can you provide any clarity? How are you going to allocate the capital? What would the program look like? Do you have any idea yet, Rick? Where are you at in that planning stage?
Yeah, so we've never really talked about what the drill targets are, what we would drill, how we would tackle the programs. We always felt that the permits were such a big overhang in the psyche of investors' minds that there was no sense of putting that out too early. So now, as we start working through these, prescribed timeframes here, Jay, we're going to start putting out to market what our actual targets are. There's numerous targets on this property that we can drill, and where we think that we could have significant results, meaningful results from an exploration standpoint. So we're going to put those out to the market here over the next, 90 days, hopefully in multiple press releases. So it should be quite exciting, especially as some of our investors that have kind of bought stock and tucked it away and haven't paid too much attention. They should hopefully wake back up to the realization that they're sitting on a pretty interesting stock with some pretty great targets.
Yes. Okay. And so, those are the headlines right now, right? We've got the permit, got the cash to put it to work, and investors can expect consistent news flow this year because we're going to put that cash to work in the ground. Now, you touched on your neighbor really quickly at the top of this interview. Can you add some context to that? What's going on in the neighboring property, Rick, and why should investors take notice of that?
Sure. Yeah. South32 is the neighbor, and they've acquired the property that they have, which is effectively the other half of the district. And that includes the Hermosa deposit. It's one of the world's largest carbonate replacement deposits. It ends abruptly at our property line, and that's where we feel that we have the ability to find a significant amount of mineralization. They are pushing forward with development plans, Jay. So they released a pre-feasibility study last, when was it? It was in the spring, I believe, $1.7 billion CapEx build to create one of the world's largest lead, zinc, silver mines. So they're pushing forward those plans right now, building water treatment plants, getting dewatering infrastructure in place. And here this summer, they're probably going to make kind of a go, no-go decision on moving that project forward, with the eye on production in early 2027. At least that's what the public information is guiding us towards.
This is the project that EMX has a royalty on, correct?
Exactly. And so they've put out some news recently of some of the drilling intercepts on some targets within that royalty claim block. Yep, exactly.
Okay. All right. So the focus is on Sunnyside right now. That's absolutely the highlight. Let's expand a little bit because there's actually some decent optionality within Barksdale. And so in the periphery, Rick, where else should we look right now? What else are you working on?
Yeah, so we have a permit to drill another project in the same district called San Antonio. And right now we're working on getting drill contracts to do exactly that. So as soon as we have a reputable drill contractor that has availability in place, we'll go out and drill that project. And that's a blind porphyry target located maybe a handful of kilometers to the southeast of Sunnyside within the same district. And it's looking for porphyry style mineralization. There are multiple porphyries in that district that are extremely large, but they tend to be deep. This one has a geophysical signature that suggests that it's in a shallow environment. So we're quite excited to drill that and see if we can't make a discovery. If so, it could be one of the first, porphyry discoveries in the United States in 20 some odd years. So very exciting. Quick test on that project will let us know if it's something that is real or just a geophysical anomaly.
Okay. And then we've got San Javier in Mexico.
Yep. We drilled that project a couple of years ago. We've been waiting on kind of pushing it forward to see how Sunnyside shakes out. That's the real catalyst within the company. That's where the real torque come from. San Javier, we have no drilling programs planned for this year, but we are putting together a PEA right now. And so investors can expect the results of that PEA during the year.
I think the timing is really, really good. It must have been frustrating for you to have been pushing this permitting boulder uphill for 4.5 years. But as a shareholder and as an investor, it could end up being really serendipitous timing because now you can get to work in what is certainly looking like far more bullish sentiment in the metal sector. And, I'm seeing this, we have our conference next week. I've never seen sentiment this strong in the metals space for maybe like 5-6 years. Our ticket sales just hit a 6-year high. And so, this could be a great collision of putting cash to work in the ground at a time when the sector comes back into favor. And I think keeping your head down and going through the permitting process for the last 4 years might turn out to be an absolute blessing. I mean, I'm just curious about that. I like this serendipitous nature of this timing, but
yeah, exactly. I mean, who would have guessed that it would have taken this long?
yeah.
If anyone asked me a couple of years ago if this would have all come together at the right time and it would have been 4 or 5 years later, I would have answered no. But it is what it is, and I think that having this tailwind right now with the mining sector, as you mentioned, and mining stocks catching a bid, I think this could work out quite well for our shareholders. And so I'm very excited to not only have this news getting into the market right now, but understanding what the news flow is going to look like for the rest of the year and the different catalysts and opportunities. I'm excited to see what we can do, and I'm very excited for our shareholders. Being one myself, I hope this year is very, very rewarding for everyone.
I love it, man. And congrats, because I think I had you on the show shortly after you took the CEO seat. It's been fun watching the whole journey. I know we're just getting started, but either way, I appreciate you making the time to come back, getting an update in front of my audience. Let's do it again soon at point of next news, and stay in touch. This has been great, Rick. Thank you.
It sounds perfect, Jay. Thanks for having me on.
We actually need to have a damn good recession.
The Russian economy is a gas station run by the mafia.
$41 trillion has been created out of nothing.
There's a stranglehold in China on most of these resources.
The outlook and fundamentals for the metals remains very, very strong.